So what happened? The Fever slow it down. They get into the beautiful motion offense we've all been in love with since the start of the season. Oh, pass, screen away. Oh, what a thing of beauty. Pass, screen away. Oh my goodness. Did you see how Kelsey Mitchell just set that screen? Mwah! Magnificent. And the Valkyrie, Natalie Nakase, and the crew, they said, oh, now's our time to strike. So over the remainder of the first quarter, the whole entire second quarter, after being up 20-11 with 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go, the Golden State Valkyrie proceed to go on a 30-12 run for the next 13 minutes.
I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes. And then, when they kind of went on their first run, it kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why. But the offense, I think, for us, it starts on defense. And we, struggled, scouting report wise. We struggled personnel. We struggled to do what the coaches asked of us. And then, overall, we just played with more energy and effort. And, those are the things that just can't happen.
What happens when a generational star returns to the court and everything falls apart? That's the story coming out of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, where Caitlin Clark's much-anticipated return from injury ended in total disaster. Fans were ready to witness a comeback celebration, a night where the Indiana Fever would continue their upward trajectory with their brightest star back in uniform. Instead, what they got was a confusing mess of coaching decisions, awkward rotations, broken chemistry, and a humiliating loss to an expansion team. But this wasn't just a loss. This was a meltdown that exposed something deeper, a leadership crisis at the very top, led by head coach Stephanie White, whose post-game comments ignited a firestorm of backlash. What we witnessed wasn't just about poor shooting or sloppy defense. It was about a system that seems fundamentally incompatible with the talent it's supposed to unleash. Let's rewind to just a few days before this collapse. The Fever were on top of the world. They had just secured their first Commissioner's Cup, playing some of the best basketball we've seen from this team in years. They took down the Las Vegas Aces, shutting down none other than Aya Wilson, arguably the most dominant player in the league. Then they turned around and handled Nafisa Collier and the Minnesota Lynx. The team was clicking, the roles were clear, the chemistry was there, and all of this happened without Caitlin Clark on the floor. It looked like the team had finally found its groove. Mitchell was scoring efficiently, Boston controlled the paint, Hull provided consistent defense and floor spacing, and the offense had rhythm. Fans, players, and analysts were optimistic. The Fever weren't just competitive, they were contenders. Then came July 9th, the return of Caitlin Clark. Anticipation built for days, with tickets selling out, fans crowding the arena in Clark jerseys, and social media buzzing with speculation about her impact. This wasn't just a regular season game. It was billed as a statement, an opportunity for the Fever to solidify their dominance and show the league what they looked like at full strength. But from the opening minutes, it was obvious something was off. Stephanie White, for reasons still unclear, benched Lexi Hull and started Ari McDonald alongside Clark. This meant Clark was pushed to the small forward position, playing off-ball in a role that has never suited her natural game. She wasn't leading the offense. She wasn't setting the tempo. She wasn't being used the way a player of her caliber should be. It was like watching someone put a Ferrari on a go-kart track and then acting surprised when it didn't hit top speed. And then it all fell apart fast. The Fever shot a miserable 31% from the field. They went 6 for 27 from deep. In 2 full quarters of basketball, the second and fourth, they scored a combined 19 points. That's not just bad, that's collapse level. The Golden State Valkyries, an expansion team still finding its identity, didn't just beat the Fever. They humiliated them. They controlled every aspect of the game. They crashed the glass, snagged defensive boards, and ran the floor with purpose. And as Indiana fell apart, the energy in the building shifted from hype to horror. Fans sat in stunned silence, watching their team disintegrate under the weight of bad decisions, poor execution, and visible frustration. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. Everyone could see it happening, but no one could stop it. But this wasn't just about stats or bad shooting. The real problem was structural. White's decision to bench Hull made no sense. Hull had been a key contributor throughout the Fever's recent hot streak. Her presence opened up the floor, gave Clark more room to operate, and allowed the team to play with better balance. But in this game, Of all games, White pulled her, and then came the second puzzling move, forcing Clark to play off ball while Ari McDonald ran the point. Now, to be clear, McDonald had been a spark plug while Clark was out, and she absolutely earned her minutes. But putting her alongside Clark without establishing clear roles or allowing them to build chemistry was a massive risk, and it backfired. Clark looked uncomfortable. The offense looked clunky. The ball movement disappeared. There was no flow, no timing, no rhythm. It felt like everyone was trying to figure it out in real time, and it showed. What's even more baffling is that Clark wasn't just moved out of position. She was treated like a role player. Her minutes were limited, her touches were inconsistent, and her impact was muted. She had flashes of brilliance. A clean three-pointer here, a gorgeous assist there, a quick burst of tempo that energized the crowd. But those moments were too few and far between. The rest of the time, she was running around setting off-ball screens or standing in the corner, essentially a decoy. For a player who thrives on facilitating, reading the floor, and controlling tempo, it was painful to watch. And fans noticed. Analysts noticed. Social media exploded with frustration. Why was the most talented player on the floor being asked to play like a shooting guard from 2006? The real breaking point came after the game. Everyone expected Stephanie White to acknowledge the issues. Maybe she'd explain her lineup decisions. Maybe she'd take some heat off her players and own the coaching mistakes. But instead, she did the opposite. She stood at the podium and criticized her team's effort, discipline, and focus. "I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire," she said. She went on to say that their attention to detail was poor and that they failed to execute the game plan. And while those critiques might be fair to some extent, what stood out most was what she didn't say. There was zero mention of her own role in the meltdown. No recognition of the failed lineup change. No accountability for putting Clark in a compromised position. No acknowledgement that benching Hull disrupted the team's chemistry. Nothing, just blame. Contrast that with Clark, who sat down for her interview and took full responsibility. She acknowledged the offense struggled. She said they didn't follow the scouting report. She admitted they got outworked. She even said the team needed to regroup and come back better. It was mature. It was poised. It was everything you want from your franchise player. But it also highlighted the growing divide between coach and star. One pointed fingers, the other looked inward. And that difference tells you everything you need to know about the leadership dynamics inside this locker room. There's another layer to this. Philosophy. White is a control-first coach. She likes structure. She wants predictability. Clark, on the other hand, is instinctual. She sees the game in motion. She thrives in systems that give her room to create. When you put these two together without compromise, friction is inevitable. One analyst said it bluntly, "Clearly, Stephanie White's philosophy doesn't fit Caitlin Clark's game." And that's the real issue. You can't force a square peg into a round hole. Not when that peg is the future of your franchise. Not when that peg is the biggest draw in the entire league. Not when that peg is Caitlin Clark. So what now? The truth is, this team is at a crossroads. The Fever have the pieces. Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Hull. These are not just good players. They're cornerstone pieces. They've proven they can compete with anyone. But talent alone isn't enough. If the system is broken, the results will reflect that. And right now, the results speak for themselves. A 19-point loss. Confused rotations. Public blame games. Fractured chemistry. If something doesn't change, and fast, this team risks throwing away everything it's built. And maybe that's why so many are saying it's time for Clark to take control. Time to give the front office an ultimatum. It's not about ego. It's about clarity. You can't build around a player while simultaneously undermining her impact. You can't draw up an entire marketing campaign around her stardom and then reduce her to a role player on the court. If the Fever want to win, truly win, they need to let Clark be Clark. They need to build a system that amplifies her strengths. They need to empower their stars, not stifle them. Because make no mistake, this moment could define the Fever's season and their future. If they double down on the current system, they risk wasting Clark's prime years. They risk losing the momentum they worked so hard to build. But if they make the tough calls now, if they reevaluate the coaching, fix the rotations, and give their stars the freedom they deserve, then this team could be dangerous. Very dangerous. So where does it go from here? That's the question everyone's asking. And the clock is ticking. The season is nearly halfway over. The window for adjustment is closing. Will the Fever choose accountability and adaptation? Or will they continue down a path that leads to more confusion, more losses, and more missed opportunities? The answer might just determine not only the trajectory of this team, but the legacy of Caitlin Clark in the WNBA.